Hi, so welcome to this video titled, Why Do We Criticize Ourselves? Especially when we hate being criticized ourselves. So one client I was working with, wonderful person, really special person, who was struggling with self-esteem and confidence. And as she started to regain this self-esteem and confidence, it was then that she realized that she didn't have probably the best role models growing up. She recalls how one time she got 90% in a test in school, and when she came home, her father asked her what happened to the other 10%. She was playing music, practicing on her musical instrument, and she made a couple of mistakes. Sure enough, her father told her, I spotted a couple of mistakes there. So as she grows up, as she's exploring new experiences, what is her mind focusing on? Yeah, it's focusing on faults, misses, imperfections, highlighting, gaslighting, I guess, criticizing. She learns the language of criticism. So she will inevitably speak the language of criticism. This will be more obvious in terms of how she speaks to herself. Now, bear in mind, it wasn't obvious to her until she discovered that this is what she was doing. But up until that point, it wasn't obvious. But when she started recognizing that language, then it became very obvious. And mostly how she speaks to herself. So she could see then how the language she was using in terms of how she spoke to herself was affecting her confidence and her self-belief. It kept her small. So why does she criticize herself when she grew up hating hearing that sort of language from her dad? Well, it's got to do with the language that we learn to speak. We speak what's spoken. We speak the language that we learn at home. There's nothing wrong with it. It is the standard. So for example, if you grew up in an English-speaking household, yes, we speak English. Everyone is aware that, well, every country that speaks a variation of English speaks some variation of English. But even any region in an English-speaking country will speak different variations of the English language. But the truth is, every household speaks a different version of English too. For example, let's go back to my client's experience with her school test. So her household English, when she says, I got 90% in my test, all excited, the language that she receives is what happened to the other 10%. And this is criticism. And it creates self-esteem issues. It causes her self-esteem to be low because she's focusing on what she didn't do, not on her successes. Now, an alternative language in a different household could be something like, you got 90%? Wow! What were you expecting? The child might say, well, maybe 70%, 60%. Adult might say, wow, you got like 20 or 30% more than you expected. You must be delighted. And the child feels great. The adult could add, well, if you did that well, it wouldn't surprise me if you got 100% in the next test. I wouldn't be surprised at all. The child might be thinking, wow, do you really think so? Excitement, possibilities. Same English language, and the difference is the words used and how those words are used. And I guess most importantly, the focus of the communication. It's encouragement, not criticism. You could use the same example with the playing music. The household that my client grew up in, all she heard was, I counted 2 mistakes there. But in another household, an alternative version of the same language could be, wow, that was beautiful. You're getting so much better. If you keep going the way you're going, it wouldn't surprise me if you're playing professionally on a stage. Child is thinking, wow, do you think so? Again, same English language, difference is the words used, how those words are used, and again, the focus of the communication. Encouragement, not criticism. So why do we criticize ourselves? Well, put simply, we like to think that our words represent our expression or how we feel. But quite often, especially over time and with repetition, our words can actually dictate how we feel. If you've grown up listening to criticism English, learning criticism English, then you will inevitably end up speaking criticism English. If not outwardly at other people because of the consequences and the backlash, then absolutely you will do it inwardly towards yourself. And you see, how your mind receives your own self-talk, it receives it in the same way that it receives information from an external source. Your mind does not separate the source of the information from the information. So your own negative self-talk, your own negative or your own criticism really hits your self-esteem, can destroy your sense of self-worth. So there's a lot more to be explained and understood about this quite complex and very interesting subject that we all struggle with to some degree. But for now, just pay attention to how you speak to yourself. Catch it. If it's there, if it's negative, catch it. And try to change it.